Backseas Musical Podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Backseas Musical Podcast. You know, in 2016, Rolling Stone magazine compiled a list of the 40 greatest punk rock records of all time. Number 13 in their list was Green Day. That's all you need to know about how much Rolling Stone understands this sort of stuff. They clearly don't know their ass from a hole in the wall, nor do they have the credibility to compile a list of records without screwing it all up, which in this case, they did when they failed to mention Young, Loud, and Snotty, the 1977 debut album by the Dead Boys. Nothing. Not a thing. And yet, if you ask people that actually know what they're talking about, that album hits the top 10 and possibly even higher, because Young, Loud, and Snotty is a gloriously near-perfect record of classic punk anthems. You will hardly find a record that more accurately reflects the times than this one. More importantly, you will hardly find a record from 1977 that has aged as well as this one. The Dead Boys were a band out of Cleveland, Ohio, that made their way to New York City, played CBGBs at the insistence of Joey Ramone, where they proceeded to blow the place apart. This was a band that was fronted by the late Stiv Bators and included Jimmy Zero, Johnny Blitz, Jeff Magnum, and my guest today, the legendary lead guitar player of the Dead Boys, Cheetah Chrome. This was a band that was so powerful that the owner of CBGB's, Hilly Crystal, decided that of all the bands coming out of that place, it would be the Dead Boys who he wanted to manage. This was at a time when bands like the Ramones and Talking Heads and Blondie and Patti Smith, Television, and Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers were all playing at that club and changing music forever. And yet, Hilly saw something in the Dead Boys that was entirely different from anybody else. And he wasn't wrong. This would be a band whose music would be covered by Guns N' Roses and Pearl Jam and Soul Asylum and Sonic Youth and many others. In short, the Dead Boys were legendary and totally essential. If you know anything about punk history, then you know that Cheetah Chrome is a monumental figure in American punk. He's not only the guy responsible for bringing the iconic track Sonic Reducer to the Dead Boys from his previous band, Rocket from the Tombs, an absolute rock anthem, but Cheetah is a survivor, a maverick, and arguably one of the great guitar players of his time. He's also put a lot of miles in over the last 67 years, from highs to lows to darkness to cheating death multiple times over. Cheetah Chrome has gotten through all of it, much of which he talks about in his 2012 autobiography, Cheetah Chrome, A Dead Boy's Tale, which, compared to other autobiographies, really is one of the better efforts. The Dead Boys are going to start touring again this October, and they've got some dates coming to New England. This is my conversation with the great Cheetah Chrome from the Dead Boys on Backseas Musical Podcast. Cheetah.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Better than yesterday, man. Yesterday was hell day. I was just all of a sudden doing all this tour shit, and I haven't actually worked doing anything really in a while. So all of a sudden, I'm up every day staring at this freaking screen all day, and I'm getting headaches, and it's just like...
Work gives everybody a headache.
Yeah, I know, but it's just like I'm just making my headaches worse just because I haven't done it in a while, you know? It's all of a sudden I'm squinting and, you know, complaining, and you know how it gets.
Believe me, I know exactly how it gets. I do want to talk to you about the tour in a little while. I want to I literally just finished reading your book, Cheetah Chrome, A Dead Boy's Tale. Finished it like last night, and I've been just...
Oh, okay, so you're not going to ask me how the band started or anything?
No, I'm not going to ask you that because there's a lot of stuff in the book and it's all there. I do have questions about the book, but no, I'm not going to ask. Cool. I'm not going to ask you how it started. But there are a couple of things that I did want to ask you about the book. And the first one was, have you ever been able to take advantage of your Holiday Inn reward points? You know, for the discounts. Was there always just too much damage to cash them in?
Really, I usually use either Hilton or like Comfort Inns or something like that, you know. Yeah, I've used those a ton of times. Holiday Inn's not my favorite chain, you know.
and based upon your history, they don't go back to old receipts and say, yeah, okay, but look at the damage this guy caused.
No, they Holiday Inn has changed hands several times since then.
The story about you guys flushing towels down the toilet it made me laugh out loud, and I can only imagine what a manager would say if all of a sudden you're calling housekeeping for additional towels.
Oh, we kept doing it. I mean, it was like, we were amazed by how many you could get down there. It was like, we're sitting there, going, first we were like going to steal them from the maids, car, and then we were calling downstairs for them. I mean, it's like an all-day thing.
But then talking to Hilly Crystal afterwards and trying to to go through the expenses that sounded so damn funny. His reaction.
I mean, we were just like, Steve just came up with research somehow. We were like, research? You guys have to research. I'm just sitting there trying not to, because I know what's coming. I'm just sitting there trying not to fucking break up already,
Well, I mean, it is good science, I have to say. It does have that scientific method to it.
That's exactly. You got to know. You need to know. If I've already done like 3 towels down the toilet, is it safe to take a shit? I mean, it's yeah, exactly. It was just scientific research. I mean, that's all it was.
Yeah, I was really excited to talk to you tonight because obviously we have a mutual friend in Bobby Bremant, who I've known Bobby for 35 years, and the dude is a total piece of work. So how did you get to meet him?
With Steve, we were going to like in '87. We were going to do rehearsals in Youngstown, Ohio. Him and Steve had become friends somehow. I don't know how, because I mean, how Steve could put up with the guy that. But then next thing you know, he was like with us for about 3 or 4 days and taking pictures and everything. And I mean, the guy was just such a fucking blast that we've stayed in touch over the years. Plus he's one of the few people that I knew that seriously had Steve's back at a time when he needed a watch.
Yeah.
And I've always appreciated that about Bobby. And so we have Steve in common basically, but we've gotten along quite well. Since Steve left us Mortal Coil. We both think about him. We call each other on his birthday and call each other on the anniversary. And,
I knew Bobby back when I first started doing radio. And my first morning show partner and Bobby would hang out with us. And, we would do our show and Bobby would hang. But one of the things that one of the stories I always remembered about Bobby, and it was about, the day that Steve died. He finds this out and he calls us up, and it's really early in the morning, and the two of them were very, very close, and he was really, really upset. And I know your relationship with Steve was very much the same, very close, powerful, and the connection that you guys built was almost immediate. When people ask you about Steve, what do you think is important for people to know about the guy? He's been gone for a long, long time. And people may just see like YouTube videos or listen to the music, but as a guy he was such an important part of your life, what do you think people should know?
Just what a smart, funny guy he was, and what a talented performer he was. I mean, that was Steve. I mean, that embodied Steve. And how much he cared about his friends. I mean, it was Steve was really a gentleman. I mean, he could be as bad. I was always the one that was like the fucking lout of the band. I was kind of the Sid Vicious guy. I wasn't. I was a hell of a lot, cooler than Sid Vicious back then. Because I was, I grew up in the projects, and it was, I was a tough kid from Cleveland, and he's a tough kid from London, and he just, was clueless. I mean, the guy was a fucking, poor kid, never had a chance.
Right.
I always felt bad about that. But me and Steve always liked Sid because, he just basically, if he would have just gone to school a little bit more, he would have been fine, But, he was, given his upbringing and all that. I mean, he was a junkie mom. I could see where it all turned in for him. But, but still cared about people like that. And he didn't buy into the hype. And he gave anybody a second chance. And just, Steve was like my brother. He's the closest thing to a brother I ever had in my life. And, I just missed that part of him. I think people need to know about that,
I mean, you do have, just you apart from Steve. I mean, you have created this, rich musical legacy all on your own, through your entire career. And I mean, that has to be kind of an odd paradox. And on one hand, it's got to be an incredible source of pride, but has to be daunting at the same time because it hasn't always been easy to be Cheetah Chrome. Tell me how you.
No.
Yeah, I mean, just by reading the book, at many points in the book, I'm going, how did he live to finish this book? Because I mean, there was a lot of detours along the way, and some of them were great, and some of them were pretty freaking scary.
Well, the cool thing was that I always had the sense to when you came down when something like that, a detour came along. I always found that if I concentrated on my music, I somehow always got back to the same place.
Right.
It was like when I got frustrated with music, and then when I got frustrated with the business, and my natural. And I'm not going to say I'm a quitter. I'm just going to say that I really get bored with that shit. And it just seems like it's a lot more, when it starts to seem like it's a lot more trouble than it's worth, I don't care what your line of work is, you should get out of it,
But when you say that music has been the thing that kind of pulls you out, it's interesting.
Yeah, that's always been my higher power,
Yeah. It's interesting how in the book you also reach back a lot to the relationship you had with your mom and how that helped you musically. I mean, she was, a single mom and really wound up being incredibly supportive of music.
She really sacrificed to buy me a guitar one time, I mean, it was very tough on her at times, but, she did it because she knew I needed it. She knew that I was good at it, and she just wasn't going to take that away from me because she knew I didn't give a fuck about anything else, And to get her to get your mom to, agree with you on that is kind of weird at first. But, we started to see results as soon as I was out of high school. So, it wasn't like I went straight out of high school and didn't play guitar anymore, went and got some job in a factory. I was working all day, and I was leaving work and going home and having dinner, grabbing my guitar and going out to rehearsal at 11 and going back and doing that like 6 nights a week, And so, the work ethic was there. It was just, depending on what the work was. The work ethic's not what it used to be. But it's, But yeah, my mom was, she was really a saint. The perfect Irish mom. I would definitely, if I had to pick somebody, it would have been her.
Yeah. I remember 1977. I was young, but I remember it, and I also remember it as the 80s progressed. Like the worst thing that could happen to your kid was for them to become a punk rocker. And here's your mom putting that all aside and say, "Hey, you know what? My son needs this more than criticizing his haircut or what he's wearing or the music he's listening to."
Dealt with all that shit back in 1974 before punk rock came along.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, I literally, I quit high school in 1973. By 1974, I was in Rock and the Tubes. By 1975, at the end of the year, I was in the Dead Boys. In 1976, we were in New York, So it was very fast. And it was, as far as punk was concerned, she was used to the leather jacket and the fucking long hair and the knife and the cigarettes and the booze and everything, So it was, getting the calls, late night calls from the cops and shit, know.
But every time, music winds up being the thing that, again, like we said, it pulls you out of that moment. Like this, I talked to a bunch of people who say that out of body experience of playing music and particular guitar, because guitar seems to have this power over some people that you probably wouldn't get if you were playing a clarinet in a school band. It just there's
I don't know, that might be cool too. You never know.
I don't know. It's hard to pick up chicks backstage when you're playing a clarinet. It's
better being a fucking snare drummer,
Well, that's true too.
That's true. What was it? Woody Allen was in the fucking cello player.
In the marching band playing
he's in the cello in the marching band. At least in the guitar, you could put a pig nose on your belt and walk around, I guess. But I never thought of that. So it was,
when the first album came out in 1977, Young, Loud, and Snotty. It's a freaking beast of a record, and maybe one of the most iconic and at the same time maybe undervalued records of the 70s. I was watching live video of you guys performing at CBGB's, and what I was really impressed with was how close that record sounded to the way you guys played live. There's a lot of bands that could never duplicate that, and you guys did. And what's also interesting about it, you never ever hear anybody say that they didn't like the mix or the way that record sounded. I mean, the Stooges had those kinds of problems, the Heartbreakers had those kinds of problems, but that first record by the Dead Boys never gets that kind of criticism.
Well, the second one got made up for it, yeah. So, I mean, everybody hated the second record, and that was because Genya didn't produce it. But, what can I say? We decided to become a democracy around that point.
It sounds like when the second record came around, everything kind of seemed to be taken out of your own hands, and the record company, Sire, was trying to change you guys into something that you weren't. Ironically, there are some really good songs on that record, but it doesn't sound the same way as Young, Loud, and Snotty at all.
What do you call it? Yeah, I mean, it's those songs with Thunderous live, they were fucking great, and it just got neutered on that record, I didn't like it. I mean, I didn't know what the fuck Felix, how the hell he even ended up there. I mean, just because he knew Seymour somehow was trying to get his foot in the door on punk rock. And we were all kind of like, this guy's an old fucking hippie. He produced fucking Come Together, for Christ's sake,
It just seemed like Felix Pappalardi had no clue what to do with you. Kind of, in a way, it's kind of like Nick Mason didn't really know what to do with the Damned on their second record either.
No, he didn't. It shows,
Yeah, it does. And thankfully the Damned were able to kind of pick up the pieces. But in this case,
well,
with you guys,
they were in the same shoes. Because I'll tell you, fucking that tour through the Dead Boys and between the release of our first album. And then we went on tour, and their second album was just coming out. And they sounded fucking great. The songs sounded great on stage. Yep. It was, they didn't have Brian anymore. They had this guy, Lou
Edmonds, yeah.
Yeah, and, it was, to me, it wasn't the same. I mean, I love Brian. Brian's one of my best friends in the band, and it was a new direction for sure. Not as much as Machine Gun Etiquette. It was just really good to see them and seeing them fucking sounding so good. And that Brian was on that fucking show. They had Brian and Lou, and then they had fucking Captain. It was two guitars.
So in the case of your second album, you guys are fighting with Sire, you're fighting with Felix, and then all of a sudden you decide, fuck this, this is not what I want to do, and you walk away, and for a good period of time.
I was there. I was 100% there to do the fucking chorus and everything, but I was ready for it. I was looking forward to the third record because I just wanted to fucking forget about the second one and do the third one as quick as possible. Because since then, while Johnny was stabbed, I'd written like 5 or 6 more good songs,
right?
Which now have all ended up as solo songs over the years. But we're going to add a lot of those songs to the set this next tour because those songs should have been Dead Boy songs anyway, And with Jake, I have that opportunity to kind of capture that again, I wish I still had Blitz, but me and Blitz can't ever play together again. It's just too much going on.
Really?
Yeah, it's fucking done, man.
Yeah, that's too bad. But I hear that a lot between guys who have known each other for a real long time. There's a long history. They either can bury the hatchet or they don't.
A lot worse if any of them had done shit since. But not one of them has done shit that counted since the fucking Dead Boys broke up. You know what I mean? And the only person who's bothered to keep the fucking name alive for fucking 40 years has been me. And, I'm glad to do it, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to, I'm hearing shit from these guys about it. Well, Jeff Mangum, bitch, I should be playing bass. No, you were a fucking total asshole to deal with the whole time I played with you. You shouldn't be in this band because you'll just fuck it up, too. I should have felt that way about Blitz, but I gave Blitz a fucking better chance,
So now when you put the band back together and you're going to go on the road in October, who is playing with the band now?
Well, right now, as far as I know, we've got Chris Alanis, who is my drummer in my solo band before Johnny Blitz. We got Johnny Blitz back. And, it was never my idea to get Johnny Blitz back, but I got talked into it. And as soon as Blitz was gone, I was like, okay, good, I can get Chris back now, because this guy's like somebody I can get along with great. We play, he's a better fucking, more reliable drummer than Blitz. It's just a whole lot of different shit going on. I don't mean playing blitz or anything like that. I mean, playing drums is a lot harder than playing guitar. He does have, rotator cuff problems and shit. He never practices, but it's, he got there and he delivered a lot of the time, and then it got towards after we'd gone through a couple of tours, he just wasn't delivering. He was, screwing up. Ain't it funny, for Christ's sakes? He's been playing for how many years?
Yeah.
And then you realize he's just doing it to piss you off.
Yeah.
They're like playing good game playing bullshit. And it's, it's like, neither one of us needs this, man. Can't you just fucking sit back, take a paycheck, and fucking like, everybody else will do it, and quit playing the fucking Machiavellian games, and,
I can see that if you're still kind of playing those games when you're in your 20s and you don't know better. But,
no, he's younger than me, so, and I'm 67. We're too old for that shit.
Yeah, that's what I would think. Just to kind of change gears here a little bit, I also, getting ready for the interview, I watched the CBGB's movie again for the I think a second or third time. The way you guys are portrayed in that movie is actually pretty interesting. I don't know how accurate it was. I mean, I know you had a part in that film. But there was kind of like a comic relief thing with the Dead Boys. How accurate do you think they portrayed you guys?
I thought that Rupert did a real good job on me. I thought the kid that played Steve did really good, except that he didn't wear his sunglasses. Steve was never caught without his sunglasses. The other guys, they looked okay. They played their parts all right,
Yeah, and like I said, Ron Weasley played you in the movie. I mean, that's the second greatest role of that kid's life.
Yeah, probably. But it's funny because I've gotten to hang out with him a few times since, and he's a great kid. He's gone all rock and roll since he made that movie.
Right. So with CBGBs, you talked a lot about Hilly, owning the club and managing you guys, and in the role he played in getting you help, later on. Obviously, he saw something in you guys that he wasn't seeing in a lot of the other bands that were coming in and out of that club. What was it that he saw in you guys that was special to him?
Just think he knew the real thing when he saw it.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think there was an authenticity to you guys that you may not have had in some of the other bands that were there. I mean, Talking Heads are a great band, Blondie's a great band, but I mean, you guys instilled a little bit of fear in people, and that was probably really attractive to him.
Yeah, because he was used to all these New York kids that were, they were tough kids and stuff, but they were, they grew up in New York. They didn't, most of them were kids from the suburbs, they were all from Queens or something, which, I mean, no matter what you say about Queens, being part of New York City suburb, and
right.
At least half of it is,
Yeah.
and, and like there's a lot of bands in New York that were, they all, looked very tough standing up against the wall with their leather jackets on, I think you could tell it was between us and them because we were actually like street fighting kids from bad neighborhoods in Cleveland, which are a lot scarier than bad neighborhoods in New York, believe it or not, because it's quieter. So there's more chance for trouble to go down. There's not fucking people within 30 feet of your whole life.
It's those damn Great Lakes. They have a fucked up effect on people.
Yeah. We were. I grew up like in one of the worst neighborhoods in Cleveland. So did Blitz, and it was. They're very much Dodge City, and you were there. You walked down the street alone in Cleveland, you were fucking alone. It wasn't like you got fucking, bystanders all over the fucking place like New York, you know?
Right.
Nobody's going to call the cops in a hurry. You get fucking, mugged or something,
I've been through Cleveland a couple of times over the years, and I can understand that at night looking for a hotel room or whatever, driving, through I-90 to get to wherever the hell I was trying to go to. And I totally get there's some parts of the state of Ohio that are best left undiscovered.
I'm just talking about walking from the fucking bus stop back down to the projects and going to my girlfriend's house, You never know who was fucking going to be around. And, there was altercations all the time back when I was growing up, You got kids who fucking have a grudge from fucking junior high will jump you, I mean, you never know what's going to happen in Cleveland. It's not it's not the fucking strongest, back then it for sure wasn't like the strongest mentality town. It was like all basically all people worked in the steel mills and fucking Ford plants and shit. Everybody's very blue collar. You know what I mean? So it was, including myself. I mean, I was a total fucking warhead back then. I mean, I didn't learn really squat until I got to close to 30 before I really started to understand and start to, actually, go on, start reading books. And, I've always read books and stuff. I mean, I wasn't never a total dummy, but I went to school all the time. I just never fucking paid attention and, never did my homework or anything,
But clearly not. But clearly not stupid.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
I've since pretty much I put myself about anybody who's got like a 2 or 3 years in college easily, That's all shit that I've learned on my own since, It's not anything anybody ever taught me.
When you talk about Cleveland, one of the things that I find kind of fascinating. People don't think of Cleveland as being this hotbed of music, but I mean, there were great bands in and out of Ohio. I mean,
yeah,
no question about it. But Rocket from the Tomb, there's a mythologized feeling about this band that may or may not be accurate. The fact that you're in a band with David Thomas, who would go on to form Perubu. Crocus Behemoth was his name at the time, which I think is still the third best stage name next to Cheetah Chrome and Rat Scabies. But nevertheless, there is a mythology about this band because so many songs in that band wound up following Perubu and also the Dead Boys. Tell me about that experience back then. Obviously, this is before you go to New York and you guys, reform many years later.
Out of high school for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I met those guys in November. I left high school. I got myself a day job and was just basically sitting around playing guitar, writing songs, and trying to find somebody to play with. And the only way there was to really connect with musicians was to go out to bars or to put an ad in the paper or look at the ads in the paper and call somebody,
Right.
Because, I was only deaf when I was still only 17, I turned 18 in Rock from the Tombs. Well, we were doing we did the album that turned into the Day the Earth Met, the recording for the radio.
Yep.
I turned 18 in the studio that night, in our rehearsal studio, And so, I was a kid, It was, and I really couldn't even go. I used to manage to get in, but I didn't have a fucking ID until I was already in the band, It was pretty crazy. And it was, looking back on it, but back then Cleveland was so much, still a steel mill town, a very polluted town.
Mm-hmm.
It was still, the population was going down by like 60% a year or something like that. The river caught on fire, not once, but a couple times.
The Browns were shitty. The Indians were shitty.
The Indians sucked. There was nothing really cool going on. And every bar you went to was all cover bands, playing like fucking Doobie Brothers and whatever shit was going on around 1973, 1974,
Right.
They weren't playing any glitter because that wasn't considered cool. So, you play a T-Rex song with these guys, and we can't play that in the Cleveland Club. Me and Blitz had already gone to see T-Rex fucking fill a theater and totally opened the crowd, It was like, we were all these people who were fucking filling that theater, look like a big crowd for Cleveland and me, So why would you not accept this music in the clubs? And it was just because of, the owners didn't want to deal with it. They were all, rock and roll. Irish didn't get into rock and roll. They didn't get into bars really except their own, Bars were their headquarters. They didn't use them as businesses,
But you guys came up at such a young age with some incredible songs, Sonic Reducer and Ain't It Fun and, Final Solution. These are all such great freaking songs at a young age. It seems weird that, that the audiences in the clubs weren't real embracing of this because those songs wound up becoming classics like a handful of years later, especially when you guys as the Dead Boys wound up leaving Cleveland and going to New York. All of a sudden, these are like the greatest songs people have ever heard.
Well, it was like my girlfriend told me one time, at the time my girlfriend back then told me one time, because it's not that they don't like you, it's just they don't know what to fucking think of you. Because you guys are like these guys that have been around, they've seen in these clubs, and all of a sudden get up one night on stage and fucking take everybody's heads off, and nobody had any clue that you guys were that good or that talented. Nobody had any clue that you guys, were that different. It
Right.
Was,
Well, David's voice is kind of like an acquired thing. You either really like it or you don't know what he's trying to do with it. And it's like,
yeah.
I mean, if you're a fan of, if you know Pierre Ubu's music, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I got it back before he perfected it, and I'll tell you something. It was first time I heard him sing. My first reaction was, well, "God damn, it's a lot higher than I expected." And then my second was like, "But that's pretty fucking good."
Yeah, absolutely.
And he definitely got the emotion across. You know what I mean? Like, and to me, after working with him, being his friend for all these years, to me, he's like, his voice is like an instrument. It's like fucking Robert Plant's or Elvis's or something. It's a special thing that only he's got. Really, to me, means a lot to when I hear it.
Yeah.
And I mean, not only wakes up old memories, but it also, every time I listen to something by Pierre Ubu, because I was never that big of a fan in the old days. We still had a lot of grudge shit going on and all that, and I just kind of, we'd call them Pure Elbow, and we'd, put their record in the fucking stack, but we never played it,
Right.
And then over the years, I started, listening to it. It was like, man, this is actually, a lot less arty than I thought it was,
Still amazing though. Just the idea that band even existed to me is just like, holy shit. I wish I was old enough to have seen it, back then, because to me it seems like such an interesting thing to have seen.
Well, Rockin' the Tooth was definitely a fucking, a fucking shit show. I mean, we were great, we for Cleveland at the time, we were, we deserved the status, I think, we went out there to knock them over the head, and we did,
Yeah.
I've often wondered in the years since what would have had Rockin' the Tunes gone to New York instead of the Dead Boys. Just because it never occurred to us. We went to Detroit to fucking meet Lester Bangs and all those guys once, I guess.
Right.
I really remember being there. I don't even know if I was there, but I know those guys. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they carried me in the van the whole trip and I didn't wake up either.
Yeah. It's an interesting question. What would have happened, but the fact is it didn't, and it was the Dead Boys.
It didn't happen. Yeah, and I mean, I'm not complaining about the way things did work out, but it's often just made me wonder because I mean, we were so frustrated over the fucking lack of attention or anything we were getting, and we would have been perfect for New York. You know what I mean? Rockets, and it's I just don't. I don't see we would have come home fucking with our tails between our legs like we did every night in Cleveland.
Especially in New York, where like the artsy side of that scene was pretty well embraced. Like the Talking Heads had kind of an artsy feel about it. Even television had an artsy side, component to it. But so maybe Rockets from the Tune would have been like the perfect band to go about to get out there.
Yeah, I just always wondered that, but I mean it doesn't matter now. Something to think about when I'm old and bored.
Right.
As far as people, when Rockets was playing, we actually, and Frankenstein, we were, playing with different bands. Like we got some, when we were hanging out with different bands a lot, like just because of the scene we were in, because of Rockin' the Tunes. Rockin' the Tunes is actually considered a very cool band in Cleveland at the time, except that nobody came to our shows and people kind of stayed 20 feet away from us just because we scared them, worse than I think worse than the Dead Boys did.
Really?
You didn't know who was, even the normal looking guys were weird in that band, At least the Dead Boys, there weren't any normal looking guys, so because we got to meet, we got to hang out with the Runaways and the Dolls and the Alex Harvey band, the Tubes, Bebop Deluxe, all these bands that would come through Cleveland, the Heartbreakers, Television. We played with Television. And so we knew, I knew Sylvain, I knew Johnny, I knew fucking Johansson when I moved up there. I knew all the guys in the Dolls, all the guys in Television. And when I got up there, I kind of met the rest of the bands. I finally got to see a lot of the bands. We always became, I met Blondie back then,
right.
Back in Cleveland. They warmed up for Bowie on the the Idiot Tour. But, you know, about Craigie on the Idiot Tour. And we had met them when we first went up to New York in 76 in August. They were a bunch of blondies who were our first show. And they were all just cool people. And that was just nice. Like Joey Ramone, when he did that for us, he brought up all these people. Like, he had a guest list for us. And it was like all Danny Fields, Roberta Bailey, John Holmeston, Legs McNeil, Blondies, Ramones, Heartbreakers, guys, you know. So, I mean, everybody cool was there to see us. And that was, like, amazing for us. Because it was, like, you know, getting to walk in and actually have, like, a built-in crowd, you know. We never expected that. You know, we had, like, 25, 30 people there at first gig. And it was all to the Legs and Joey, which we still owe them a lot, you know.
It sounds like, and I've never met Joey. I never had a chance to interview him, but
I should have.
Yeah, everything I hear about that guy is he was the absolute nicest guy, and he was just like a kind, sweethearted guy. And for all the,
but he was also one of the guys too. He didn't put up with anybody busting his balls or nothing either. He wasn't like, you can make him seem like a wuss that way, and he wasn't. He was, me and him, we get into arguments and swing at each other. I mean, Joey was fucking one of the guys. He was a good man. He was a friend. It was all friendly, but it was fun. You know.
There's a whole bunch of stuff in the book that sticks out to me, and I thought about this even before I even picked up the book. Is that you have, in a very real way, have outlasted a lot of your contemporaries, whether it's Stiv or Thunders or Joey or Hilly Crystal or any of the others that weren't able to survive that period of time. You were very open in the book about that. I mean, you're a survivor in a world where not everybody gets a chance to survive. I know that none of that is lost on a guy like you, and you understand it and have a good deal of gratitude. But tell me a little bit about that. Being in a situation where so many people that you started off with weren't able to make it out.
Got to think about that. That's a pretty good damn question. I like that one. It was first death that really hit me that hard was Peter, because he died right after we got started.
Yeah.
And he was only 23 when he died. He died of liver failure.
Mm.
So think about what that guy had to do.
Yeah.
I have liver failure at 23.
He makes you look like a lightweight.
Well, yeah, I mean, but back then I was right there with him. It was, I've stopped for periods, but I mean, I haven't ever stopped completely forever.
Right.
I still have beers. I still smoke pot. I still take painkillers when I need them. But it's but I had to quit for years before I was able to even keep it down to that. And so but the first case of survivor's guilt I really got was Stiv. I mean, because I was living in New York, in the East Side and all that, all through the 70s and, the 80s, going up, I was staying at my mom's house in Connecticut, and I had a bunch of junkie buddies up there, too. They were all over the place in New England. And, I was the only fucking junkies that knew how to hop in a small town in Connecticut. I mean, it's like...
Yeah. Now they're in every town in Connecticut.
Trust me, they've been there all along.
Oh, I'm sure that's true.
Getting back to my original answer to your question, I guess it's going to take me a minute to answer because I'm still thinking about it. Stiv was the first case of real survivor's guilt that I ever felt because he had a lot going for him. He was in the Lords; they were touring all over the place. I was shooting dope in New York. And basically trying to kill myself. And then somehow we were supposed to get back together that month. And then he died. And so all of a sudden, well, that's out the window and this is out the window. And it just took me a month to realize, holy shit, my best friend is gone, And a bit of that came pretty much once a year or twice a year after that, where either somebody in the business I knew died or somebody, a friend of mine, who was a running buddy, died, And it was death was real commonplace on the Lower East Side back then. It wasn't, I had one friend of mine, Billy Balls, got shot by cops. I mean, wasn't just dope, it was just hard, living in the city. And, I ended up with good friends that were really normal people, ended up going to jail for fucking crimes just to get dope,
Yeah.
And one guy that fucking tied a guy to a chair, stole 5 pounds of dope from him, beat him up, and left him there, and ended up being in Sing Sing for 5 years. I was my roommate when he got out, It's like, it was just a weird place. I mean, New York is so cramped, and you got your friends, and you're all from such different circumstances. And none of you's got a past that's not 80,
Yeah.
I mean, we're all hanging out with strippers and drug dealers and all that all the time. And I guess, pretty much it was just attrition, just, the way things go in life if you're stupid instead of smart. But like Johnny and Jerry, I mean, those two are really unexpected to me. I didn't even cry after Stu died. I didn't cry after Johnny died. I cried when Jerry died because I'd been there to see him, and it was he was in a hospital, and he had, meningitis and all this stuff going on with him, and he just couldn't really talk to me,
Yeah.
He was high, and it was very upsetting. And I just had to say, I can't see you like this again, man. I love you, brother, but I can't come here and see you if you're not getting better. I can't do it, you guys have all so far died out of my sight. I can't watch somebody go out of my sight, in my sight, or I'm just going to fucking kill myself. And gave him a hug and fucking, had to leave. I got to spend a few cool. I mean, we couldn't say a word of each other. He's a fucking oxygen breather and, tubes down his throat. But we were communicating by squeezing hands and shit,
Right.
But he looked terrified. It wasn't my best memory of rock and roll. No, I found out, I was out of my mom's house in Connecticut, and it came on the news that one of rock and roll's greatest drummers died. This was about a month later, and I was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And I said, Jerry Nolan from the New York Dolls, and I was just like, oh shit. And I said, Mom, I'm going to go in the room and sit for a bit. And went in there, I put on the fucking radio, and first song came on was Tears in Heaven, and I just fucking broke down and cried for about 2 hours, probably. Over all 3 of them,
Yeah, gee, I mean, that's a remarkable answer. To admit all of that, and to admit how these kind of things accumulate when it comes to guilt and loss and sorrow. You don't. Everyone grieves in different ways, and it hits you when you least expect it.
I was a tower of strength when my mom died, but as soon as the funeral was over, I was up at 3 a.m. with a bottle of fucking Sailor Jerry's, crying.
Yeah.
In my basement, holding their ashes. It was. You get through it however you get through it. I mean, there's no sensible way to get through it except for let time go by. But sometimes that don't come. At the moment, that don't come quick enough, and that's why you seek whiskey, and or heroin or something,
Yeah.
And look, I didn't turn to that for Mom until about 6 months later, but it ended up happening that way,
Yeah. But then you did have your son, and you raised a good kid, and it's like that whole blood, sweat, and tears song. One dies, one goes on to carry on.
Yeah.
I know for me as a dad, everyone says, before the baby's born, it's going to change your life. To me, that's the moment where your life actually begins, when suddenly you become responsible for a child.
How old are you, man?
Almost 56.
Okay, how old are your kids?
22, 20, and 18.
Yeah, I got a son. You got a son or a daughter? 18.
3 daughters.
3 daughters. Okay. Well, my kid's just 17 right now. He's gonna be, but he's 19 already, or he's like 19 or 20 already.
It's true.
And this kid's fucking quick. He learned from the best before he went to school.
Does he have any appreciation for the Dead Boys or your career or even the legacy that you've built? Does he have any because my kids don't give a damn
I don't know,
about.
he's got three of my posters on my wall, and he plays on like a truck.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know, yeah. I mean, it's funny because I mean, down here, you know, since I moved to Nashville in '96, I've become part of the community here. So like, everybody knows I'm here. Everybody knows who I am. You know, I get favorable press and everything, even because you know I've actually gone in and produced good records and shit, and hanging out. I hang out with the A-list guys, the studio guys, you know, because they're fucking nice guys and they're smart, you know. And anybody thinks Tennessee's full of dumb hillbillies that never fucking sat around with a bunch of musicians in Nashville.
So the Dead Boys are actually coming through Massachusetts, and which is awesome. October 20th.
No, we're not. That got canceled. We're doing
Really? It got canceled? Really?
that place, the vault, closed down, man.
Oh my God, that's too bad. So
That's okay. Paul River's a fucking toilet anyway, man. You know,
you'll get no argument from me, and New Bedford's
I
not.
wasn't really looking forward to that gig. I don't want my pool table smelling of pussy, you know.
Well, good. I'm glad I didn't buy tickets yet. That would have been. I'm
Yeah.
myself a few bucks.
Yeah, you won't have to buy a ticket. Don't worry about it. Just call me. You won't need a ticket.
I'll tell you what. I'll use that money. I'll buy a bunch of towels and flush them down a toilet in a hotel.
Your hotel, right?
any hotel. I want to continue your research.
Yeah, well, you can, as long as this is the room next to mine. I don't care. You know.
Hey, Cheetah, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you, and I appreciate the time you took tonight. So thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Well, anytime, man. If you need anything more, just give me a buzz, man.
I appreciate it. Cheetah, great to talk to you, and I'm sorry we'll miss you in New Bedford. I guess next time around.
Well, you can't make it to Providence? How far is that?
Where are you playing in Providence?
I think a better place, actually.
If we had more time, we could talk about your Providence stories, because there's plenty of those, too.
Alchemy, you know?
Alchemy. Yeah, I know where that is. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're playing Alchemy. That's the 23rd. It's the night after New York.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, very good. Hopefully we can see you out there.
Well, just give me a text, closer to the show, and I'll make sure you're on the list.
Wonderful. Cheetah, great to talk to you. Have a great night.
You too, man.
All right.
Thanks for calling.
You bet. Take care. Bye-bye. The name of Cheetah Chrome's book is called Cheetah Chrome, A Dead Boy's Tale. It really is very, very good. Keep your eyes open for the Dead Boys touring this fall. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, share it, rate it, subscribe to it, tell all your friends about it. You can email me at bax@rock102.com. I'd love to know what you think. And thanks again for listening to Baxy's Musical Podcast.